Whew. There we go.
So what did you do?
I fixed the game.
Yes, but how did you fix the game?
I I added shinks. That was all it ever needed. Hey, what's good, Joe? Soul here, and welcome back to my story mode. Now again, before we get started here, I have to once again shamelessly plug my full review of Pokemon Legends ZA that I put out last week. I would really love for that one to get some true love from you guys, because I worked kind of hard on it, and I would really like for you guys to see that, so you guys can get all of my full opinions in regards to this game. Link, as always, will be in the description. But there is an important conversation that we definitely need to have right now. As of now, it's officially been over a month since the release of Pokemon Legends ZA. We've been playing it for a good while now, so hate it or love it, you have to acknowledge the fact that this game definitely tested the waters, changing formulas that we simply believed would never be touched like this, and yet here we are. A direct sequel to a generation that we never thought we would hear high nor hair about ever again, real-time combat which makes for really engaging and much quicker battles, and a map dedicated to one singular city for an entire game. Yeah, this is definitely the most different Pokemon game we have ever had. Whether you think it's good or bad, it is definitely different. Now, as I've made clear in the review that I've again linked in the description, I very much enjoy Pokemon Legends ZA for what it is. While I don't think that it's perfect by any means, I do really enjoy the innovations and style that it brought to the table. It does a lot of things right that I would really love to see going into future Pokemon games and future Legends games. However, in a similar vein, there are a lot of things that I would really like for them to pay more attention to and really try to work out the kinks of going into the future of this franchise. So, as you've seen from the title and thumbnail, we've got a little bit of readjustment to do with this title in particular. Or at least a little bit of imagining on my part, so you already know how it goes. So go ahead, sit down, get cozy, grab yourself a nice cold can of ginger ale. It's about dinner time, so go ahead, grab your biscuits, your gravy, and your jellyfish ink to spray all over that, while we go ahead and talk about some of the ways that I would personally fix Pokemon Legends ZA. My first fix would absolutely be the voice acting situation. I don't care how long it would take, and I don't care who I would have to step into the ring with to make it happen, we would need to make this happen, because like I've said plenty of times by now, this is getting absolutely ridiculous. You see, there's this little thing called style choice. Pokemon Company and Game Freak has decided on a style for the modern Pokemon games that requires a lot more time and dedication when it comes to the models and the animations. These characters are moving, their lips are moving, they are talking to one another in these animations like they are supposed to be saying something, like those lips are supposed to be synced to actual words. I genuinely have a hard time thinking of any other video game that has ever done this in particular. I've never seen this. I've seen plenty of animations out there, like the beginning of pretty much any Kirby game, where there will be absolutely no dialogue whatsoever because those characters don't really talk like that. I've also seen plenty of the alternative situation in which there would be like static PNGs or static models like breathing, moving up and down, with dialogue text at the bottom with actual voice acting, but no animation. That happens all the time. I don't think I could even name like 2 other games that have ever had this weird in-between situation where it just simply looks like something is missing, where there is supposed to be sounds there, but instead of talking and actual sounds of the mouth, we get sound effects of everything else and music. Who decided this? So yeah, first order of business, that's getting fixed right up. If we really don't want to be like Square Enix and we just want to save time and development money, then we don't even have to sync any of it to any other nationality. We would just make sure we have the Japanese dub, and then all we have to do is make sure that the subtitles are available in every country where this game is available. For anybody that's played JRPGs at all, I promise you this would not be a problem with anybody. In a case like this one, I feel like voice acting is just generally so important, and when done correctly, it can elevate your storytelling by a wide margin. Like, you have no idea. The amount of personality and emotion that could be poured into these characters through voice acting is just unlimited. did, and I really do hope that they take the time to do something like that down the line, because they have no problem doing that with any other form of media, even in Pokemon Masters, but not any of the mainline games, which is beyond baffling to me. But this is definitely one of those things where I would have started here, but I guess that wasn't the case with them. Moving on. My next major fix would be easing up on the tutorial. I always think about the very beginning of Cyberpunk 2077. The way that they handled how you receive the tutorial in that game is very simple and completely optional, and I really appreciate it. It just felt like they had so much faith in their player base. Either they were playing through the game again and they didn't really need that tutorial, or if they were playing it for the first time, maybe they felt like they could figure it out on their own throughout their playthrough, and they would absolutely have that option to do so, but they would also have the option to revisit the tutorials whenever they felt like it. This is definitely a confidence that Pokemon Company and Game Freak should absolutely have with their player base by now. Most of the people playing these games are people who know Pokemon, who have been playing Pokemon their entire lives, and they understand how this franchise works by now. If we want to avoid a tutorial because we feel confident enough to be able to handle things ourselves, then we should absolutely have the right to skip past the tutorial and come back to whatever we need whenever we need it. At the same time, it should never be a tutorial situation in which it completely locks us out of doing whatever we want in a game that offers so many things to do right from the get-go. If I feel like I want to run off to the left and go collect that little item that's sitting on the ground, or maybe go fight or catch that Pokemon that's sitting on a lamppost, then I should absolutely have the freedom to do that. Why is the tutorial completely barring me? That is already beyond unnecessary. In my little fix here, I would essentially be acknowledging the fact that a lot of the player base is indeed grown up. I'm going to trust that they will inevitably have to face some form of confusion or adversity, and they'll be able to make their way through it on their own. Handholding them is only going to make them angrier. They are not children, they don't need to be led, they can find their own way. That's what this series is all about. I would give them the option to revisit any of the tutorials if they need them, because yes, I understand that this is a very different game with different mechanics from what people are used to, so they might be a little confused on the specifics of the mechanics. And that's precisely what menus are for, bruh. If they want to go in and refresh themselves to learn a mechanic that they didn't really completely understand, then they can do that and then simply go on about their day. This is something that needs to be said for all mainline Pokemon games going forward. But that's how I'd fix this one. Let's move on. Now, this one isn't necessarily something that's broken, but something that I would love to touch up on more. But I would really like to spend more time developing Team MZ. I like Urbane, Tawny, Naveen, and Lita, but I feel like for whatever reason, with Pokemon specifically, we get a little too nervous to delve deeper into flaws and imperfections when it comes to characters, and that really sucks, because as much as I do enjoy a lot of these characters, I feel like there's so much more story to tell with all of them, and we just kind of shied away from that. We would always touch on super surface level stuff. When it comes to Lita, wanting to be a dancer, we didn't really delve much into that as much as we probably could have. Naveen having the literal dream of becoming a fashion designer, but he couldn't do that at home, so he had to go find a completely different safe space to be able to practice that art. And Urbane and Tawny going on the hunt to find somebody in particular, something that we didn't even touch back on until the literal end of the game, the post game, mind you, which is insane to me. I know people are definitely gonna get annoyed with me when I say this, but I can't help but imagine a Persona situation when it comes to side quests potentially helping to delve deeper into these characters. Utilizing the main story to introduce them to us in a general aspect is totally fine, but while we progress through the story, there should be times where we go off to the side and maybe have little adventures with these characters, get to know them on a much deeper and more personal level. When this game was coming up, I was fully under the impression that we would have actual dedicated side quests to Naveen to help develop our roster when it came to clothing options for stores and whatnot. And I gotta admit, I was a little disappointed that we didn't get that, because that would have been the perfect opportunity to delve more into his story, into his character. Don't get me wrong, I love that he's a little fashion nerd that is obsessed with a streamer. That's cool and great and all, but there's definitely more that we could have utilized from that story. And I think it also would have made more sense and helped a lot in developing the general bond between Team MZ as well. I would have loved to add a side quest that essentially engineered a situation in which both Naveen and Lita would battle you at the same time, together. A, we don't utilize that mechanic often enough when it comes to the trainers. B, it'd provide for a really interesting and fun little challenge. And C, it would allow us to peer into their relationship as Team MZ members. Am I talking out of my ass here? Does that make any sense? Fun fact about me, one of my all-time favorite tropes is found family. I adore it with every fiber of my being. And you could definitely tell they tried to engineer that in a way here, but they had to focus more on AZ's primary story with the weapon, so they couldn't delve into that as much as they probably would have liked to. So obviously, if I'm working on a timer like them, I would probably just do my best to implement that through side quests. Because at the very least, for people that may not even be interested in it, at least you get rewards out of it, right? But either way, that's definitely one way I would go about that. I'd also throw in AZ in some of those side quests and maybe get some cutscenes in there of him actually sitting down with us at dinner. That'd be so cute, man. Next on my list here, speaking of underutilized characters, Emma. She does not show up in this game nearly as much as she should. For somebody that's a supposed detective taking over for her mentor, you would think that she would be the first on the scene figuring out what's going on with these rogue mega evolved Pokemon and everything that's happening with Quizartico Inc. I mean, I guess it's not technically wrong to say that she was kind of first on the scene because she was investigating into whatever was going on with Zygarde, but at the same time, it feels like they didn't really follow up on that. There is absolutely no reason why she wasn't way more present in this game. She's a strong-ass trainer. She absolutely should have been participating in the ZA Royale, bruh. Regardless, you have to remember that this character is on the cover art of the game. Urbane and Tawny aren't even on the cover of Legend ZA. Why is she there? She was perceived to have a much bigger role than she ever actually got, and that's super unfortunate. Yeah, no, another major order of business is implementing much more Emma, much more everywhere. More actual side quests with her actually visiting Hotel Z every now and again and tuning into the meetings that we're having so that she can actually help us out. Her being much more physically present at the end of Legend ZA. Why was she? That's insanity to me. I don't know, man. If you're gonna hype up a character like this, I think we ought to utilize said character. Cause I mean, there's a lot of story that technically our character doesn't even know about Emma. And I feel like the same goes for the rest of Team MZ too. So you can fight me on it all you want. That is actually a very important part of this overhaul that I would do. Let's move on. The next major thing, and this one's probably a lot more obvious, but I'm talking in a lot of different general aspects when I say this, but I would definitely spend a lot of time deeply developing Lumiose City even deeper. One of my examples being something that everybody and their mothers have talked into the ground already, but texturing the buildings. Not that anybody should spend that much time paying that much attention to the wall decals or anything like that, but when they are copy pasted and completely flat and obvious, that's when it's a little bit of a problem. The way that they decaled these buildings are definitely the most like manufactured and corporate things that they have done with this game by and far, and it is just so unfortunate that they just let this happen. I think in terms of priority, this would be like the second major thing that I would do in my redevelopment plan for this game, because the most important thing about a game like this is its atmosphere and its immersiveness. And it's kind of hard to stay immersed when you run up to a wall and it is completely just lazily made. You're taken out of it almost immediately. It's ridiculous. Next to that, I would add an actual, genuine, dedicated underground. A lot of us were very much expecting them to utilize the Paris catacombs as another subsection of the city for us to explore. Instead, we got a very simplified sewer system with not much going on down there. There could have been levels or layers of some sort at the very least. This could have been the perfect time to implement some form of like water drainage puzzles for us to get past. What we have now is a little lackluster, and that's really upsetting. Whenever I think underground, I think of 4th gen. I think of bases. I think of building stuff up. I don't necessarily think of an empty sewer system with a couple of Pokemon down there that serves as like a pseudo wild area. And I would definitely have loved to give a reason for us to go back down there, because essentially after the main story and like maybe one side quest, once you've gotten all the Pokemon down there, you're good. There's no reason to revisit the underground. That's crazy. Alongside that, generally speaking, I would just make it so that more places around the city are enterable. One of the coolest things about Pokemon X and Y was that we actually had dedicated stores for clothing. Every time you would go in one of the different stores, there would be different NPCs littered around. There would be new cosmetics for you to pick out on the display mannequins. Every time you were done dressing up your character, you could look in the mirror and make sure that your fit is fire. I would absolutely have loved a situation like that upgraded to the full degree with the shops in this game. I would also merge a lot of them. I don't think that there needs to be that many clothing shops with that little stuff in them. In reality, we would only need like 4 or 5 shops total that are updating their catalog throughout our playthrough. Why do we have a million shops with like 3 things in them? That is too much. So generally speaking, yeah, I think that could absolutely do with a touch up. And then of course, I would really love to touch up on the wild zones in Lumiose City. I would definitely love to implement more story moments utilizing them. I would love to implement some kind of puzzles or like some potential connection to the underground system if something like that is even possible. I would definitely love to make it feel a little bit more lively. Maybe there's other trainers in those wild zones that are fighting Pokemon themselves, or maybe you could fight a couple of trainers during the day if you really want to. I don't know. I just feel like there's so much more you could do with the wild zones. But in this instance, they were just completely underutilized. Overall, while I do enjoy the general aspect of exploring a city and catching and battling Pokemon within it day or night, these are just a couple of the things that I would definitely take into account to make it feel like more if I were developing this. In a very similar vein, I would definitely add more story-heavy dungeon-like aspects. Exploring Lysander Labs was easily one of my favorite parts of the game because it felt like a true dungeon. Fighting past groups of Pokemon, getting key cards to unlock certain doors, turning on power switches and stuff like that so you can use the teleporters again. That felt like some of the closest we've had to real puzzles and dungeons since classic Pokemon era, and it was over as soon as it started. I simply need more stuff just like that. Other hidden cafes with their own dungeons to explore, other buildings within the city. There are plenty of buildings within the city that we could have entered and it could have been its own dungeon. You're going through like an apartment building or something like that and you got to find certain keys to unlock doors or whatever. I just feel like there was so much potential for more stuff just like that. Honestly, I'm almost convinced that the only reason we didn't have a second major dungeon going up like the corrupted Prism Tower was because they ran out of time and they had to change the story so that Urbane and Tawny went up there instead, which is insane to me because that would have been a really cool mini dungeon to explore during the final act of the game. I just couldn't believe it, dog. I just couldn't believe that we had something like that. We got a taste of it and they took it away almost instantly after not giving us anything like that throughout the entirety of the game. We got that taste of it at the very end. Unfortunate. Taking a step back to the fashion aspect, I would definitely implement a way for us to stylize how we utilize our Mega Rings. Like, what in the hell do you mean I have to sit there and watch as all of these different trainers utilize their Mega Evolution in unique ways, and I have to use the boring old wrist raise? Are we serious? Nah, gang, let me put my Mega Stones in my headphones and let me turn up in the middle of battle. That would go bonkers, bruh. What if I want to give that earring I just bought a little flick because my Mega Stone's right there? That would have gone crazy. Maybe I want to do a little slap on my armband like I'm Terra from Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep or something. I'm just saying, there's definitely a lot of ways that we could have implemented unique animations for how we utilize our Mega Rings. And to a region that's so heavily dedicated to its fashion, I think how you utilize style should also be important. So yeah, that's how I'd go about that. Next to that, I would add skates and bikes back. Like I said in one of my previous videos, I find it extremely strange that we did not have skates at all when this is where they were introduced to us to begin with. Again, it is very easy for us to get from place to place on foot, and there's so many travel spots that the map is completely littered with them, and we can get anywhere that we need to in a matter of like 2 seconds flat, not a problem. But if I want to run somewhere, I should have the option to get there on foot, but faster. I feel like skates should be a thing, especially in a region that had dedicated architecture for it. And it should be just as easy as it was in Pokemon X and Y to summon them or put them away. If I want to skate around the outskirts of Lumiose City, I should be able to do that. But the moment that I get to a staircase or somewhere that I need to climb up like a ladder or something like that, it should be just as fast and easy to take them back off. Bikes I'm a little more indifferent about because they're not as unique, but if we had to add like another faster ground travel option, bikes could be an option too, but I would probably focus more on skates if we're honest. Kind of leading into that, another thing that I would definitely touch up on is the parkour aspect of this game. I haven't heard a lot of other people talk about this, but the parkour aspect, while a neat idea in theory, it feels like it's not even supposed to be here. It's so awkward. The way you jump from rooftop to rooftop with the Rotom glide, it feels so improper. And those construction areas, like, again, neat in theory, but the way that you maneuver around them is so strange. I would at least make it so that you could have like some kind of vault for those really tiny steps or like ledges that feels like you should be able to get over. I would also make the jumps that you do with the Rotom phone or Rotom glide feel a little bit more stylized, like you're doing like some spins or some flips or something, just so it doesn't look as awkward and stiff as it does in midair. At that point, I'd add more of a little free fall situation like we have in like Tears of the Kingdom or something like that, where you're not just falling awkwardly with the jumping animation, you're actually falling. You know what I'm saying? Essentially, I would just do whatever necessary to make the quote-unquote parkour feel a little bit more fluid. Hell, maybe instead of the Rotom glide, I would add skates to the game and make it so that there's ramps on the tops of buildings so that you could run off of those with your skates and do tricks and then land on the other side of the building. Man, Game Freak on me. Just toss me in there, bro. And the last major and probably one of the most obvious things would be implementing some form of Pokemon interactions, specifically bringing back an enhanced version of Pokemon Ami. These are supposed to be our friends, our pals, our partners in battle throughout these games. Why is it that the only way that we can interact with them in this game in particular is specifically through the camera? That is weird. I think some form of Pokemon camp-like situation or Pokemon Ami situation would just benefit this game immensely. And as much as I appreciate the simplicity of raising our Pokemon's friendships in this game, I feel like having the option to work for it a little bit would definitely help the actual literal bond that I have with these creatures. Being able to feed, pet, brush, and throw a ball at them, that doesn't seem like it's asking all that much, especially because even Scarlet and Violet did that, so I'm shocked, again, that it didn't come back in any capacity, even though it was acknowledged, just not brought back. Absolutely astounding. But with that being said, that just about does it for all of the ways that I would go about fixing Pokemon Legends ZA. Just because I like the game doesn't mean that there aren't issues that I would definitely have loved to fix up, and these are said issues for sure. I say all of this in hopes that eventually down the line, when we do inevitably get that next Pokemon Legends title, some of these things or all of these things can be implemented to make for a better experience. But hey, you know what? Maybe that's just me. So that just about does it for this one. By the time you guys see this, a new trailer for Mega Dimension will be out. I don't know what it's going to tell us. I don't know what it's going to showcase. Probably something major that I'm going to be too late to talk about, but whatever. I don't even know if I'm going to make a video on it. We'll see. But just know that by the time you see this, I probably know about it, so you don't need to tell me. But all that being said, I'm passing the mic over in your direction, and I want you guys to tell me everything that you're thinking in the comment section below. Do you agree that These are all valid ways in fixing Pokemon Legends CEA. These things being implemented would definitely help a lot with the general experience for a lot of people, and you included. Or are you on the opposing side? There was no saving this game from the get-go. None of these things being implemented could save it, or it's already perfect and none of these things need to be added as fixes. Tell me everything that you're thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I'm always going to be down there with you guys. But with that, I think it appears to be skedaddle o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and do exactly that. I'd like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I'm gone. So thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor of taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!
Like this, like switch, like this, priceless, like this, like switch, like